Welcome to the Viking Observer program. I'm Patti Ferrell, resident of East Bridgewater and mother of 2 children that took AP Calculus and 7 foreign exchange students that took the program here. And I'm here today with Bill Pellegrino, Autumn Alden, and John Jardin. And we're going to share some things. I'm going to ask them some questions and they'll answer. So we're going to have a peek at Jamil Siddiqui, 2019 Teacher of the Year in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We're also here to invite you to the Legends and Legacies Gala, which is in memory of Anne Hynes, and the gala is Friday, November 1, 2019 at the Villa. And at that time, we will honor Jamil Siddiqui as the East Bridgewater Teacher of the Year for this state. I am joined by these 3 fellow people who are really going to share some of their experiences with us about Mr. Siddiqui. I happen to have their high school yearbook quotes. So let's start with Autumn. Autumn said in her high school yearbook, and what year did you say that was? A long time ago.
Yeah, 1999.
If nothing else, finish strong. And she quoted Mr. Siddiqui. And late night class 5 BS.
Late night calc.
Calc, okay.
Yeah, late night calc. Because we would often stay at the school late into the night practicing calculus. And 5 is the best score you can get on an AP Calc exam. So that's what we all wanted.
And how many 5s did you get?
I got 2. I was fortunate enough to get 2.
Good. So in A, B, in both.
Yeah.
Can you talk about just a tiny bit about anything else or something else related to your experience at East Bridgewater High with Mr. Siddiqui in calculus?
Something other than doing calculus all the time.
All the time, right? Okay.
So the BS part of that quote in my yearbook was Brownie Sundays, and that's because I worked at Peaceful Meadows when I taught high school. No, when I was in high school, I worked at Peaceful Meadows, and after school I would often have to go to work, but then after work I would come back to do more calculus. People stayed after school, they'd come and go, sports, work, whatever people had to do. And when I'd come back from Peaceful Meadows, I'd bring Brownie Sundays. So that's what the BS. Brownie Sundays didn't fit in the yearbook, but BS did.
Great. And I knew that. I don't know how I knew about the Brownie Sunday, but I certainly did. And next, Bill Pellegrino. Your quote read, "I am the Schwab, lover of everything related to calculus or Bruce Springsteen." You had lots of good times from after-school calculus the last few years, and you also put, what did you write? Integrals.
Mm-hmm.
And can you tell us a little bit about this Schwab? Did everybody have a nickname?
A lot of people did. I was lucky enough to get one. I actually had Mr. Siddiqui for pre-calculus my sophomore year, and then 2 years of AP Calculus, junior and senior year. And I think, maybe John can confirm, the Schwab nickname came about in pre-calculus, I think.
Okay.
At some point, he realized I was kind of smart and not just kind of a weird goofball. And the Schwab nickname came about from this TV show, I think, Stump the Schwab, where it was like a sports Jeopardy sort of thing almost. And I like to think it's because I was smart in calculus, like the Schwab was with sports, but I actually think it's just because I kind of look like the guy.
Oh, okay. That's great. So, did all of Jamil's students have nicknames?
Not all, but a lot did. And a lot of them just had kind of funny ways to say their name, like Nadia, one of your exchange students, was just Nadia. Just, you had to yell it. But not everyone was lucky enough to get a nickname, but it was fun when we did.
But a lot did,
Okay.
right. And John Jardin, you said, "Yeah, the world would swing if I were king." And you also indicated that you said, "My AP buds." So AP was pretty important to you, I assume. Can you tell me a little bit about this? And
Yeah.
did you have a nickname?
I didn't have a nickname that he appointed me. My senior year, they did a piece on me, the Enterprise, and they kind of only wanted to talk about my athletics, but all I wanted to talk about was calculus. So I remember towards the end of senior year, he put the article on the back of the room, and him and other people would refer to me as the Dream Kid, but not a terrible nickname to have, not as cool as Schwab, but and yeah, I threw in AP Buds into my yearbook, list of people to shout out because I was, and Schwab could probably confirm this, we were the same year, that I was a bit of a social butterfly. I had a lot of different groups. I played sports, I was in different clubs, and then as Autumn alluded to, was we always came after school late hours to do more calculus. And of all those social groups that I hung out with, I had the most fun in Jamil's class in after school. So definitely had to shout them out in the yearbook.
Great. That was good. Okay. Jamil tells me that Autumn was always about math. Always about math. She knew exactly what, why, and how she wanted to do it. But he told me that Bill teetered between history and math.
Absolutely.
So how did you end up being a math teacher?
So well, that's a great question. I love math and history pretty equally. I'm actually licensed to teach both math and history. I figured, I'll be honest, it's easier to get a job in math, right? But I wasn't really that huge a fan of math until I had Mr. Siddiqui, and that's when things changed. I was good at it, but I wasn't in love with it. And then he kind of opened my eyes to things and turned me into a real math lover. And I just saw what he did, and I kind of wanted to do things just like that. So I decided I'd be a math teacher.
Great. And John, you just alluded to the fact that you did a lot of other activities in high school, and math came a little later to you. So tell me about what led you to math.
So kind of like Schwab just said, I was always pretty good at math. Always had A's growing up. Right about the time I stepped into Mr. Siddiqui's room, that's kind of when sparked the passion. It was just the environment that he created. It was fun. I liked the interactions that we had with the teacher. Around the same time, I was also coaching youth lacrosse, and I loved that. So naturally, teaching was a way to have that interaction with students, have that positive impact on them, while also be a coach. So that's kind of why I went into that path.
So was it hard for you to work in sports, other social activities, and still do late night math?
I look back at it, and I have no idea how I did it. It didn't seem hard at the time to just make time to do these things. So I don't have a really good answer for that. I don't remember it ever being an issue with conflicts or things like that. So it felt easy, but also when you want to be somewhere, like you want to be, after practice, I'm dying to get back to Jamil's room, you make time to do those things.
Great. Mr. Siddiqui, in address to the Council of Chief State School Officers, quoted, "You have to love something. And you have to love your subject, or you have to love your students." And he said, or he quoted, "The best teachers love both." Can you address that a little bit? I mean, sounds like you just loved really being there. You loved math, but you loved being there. So talk about how he got those messages across to you.
I think, so as Mr. Siddiqui said, I did always like math. My grandmother was a math teacher. Math always came easy. It was a subject I didn't really have to work hard in. I was always interested. But I've often wondered that if Mr. Siddiqui taught history, would I be a history teacher today? And I pick history because that was maybe not my favorite when I was in high school. But I don't know that if it was really so much that he taught math and I loved math already, or if it really just was him. And I think there's a fair chance that it was just a lot of just him. Like, Schwab said, like John said, they weren't so interested in math, until he really sparked passion. I think teachers like Jamil, if there are even any teachers as good as Jamil, which maybe there aren't, can bring that passion out of almost anybody. And I think that's really important.
So I think his class by nature is sort of where even good math students start to hit the wall and start to struggle a bit. And more times than not, you'll see students kind of give up or turn away. He just has a way of making you push through that wall, which really was like the fun of it all, to struggle through it, but also his constant encouragement didn't make you want to give up on that subject. So even though I may have struggled at times in his class, I still had that passion for the subject. And like I said, this relationship that he could develop with each and every one of his students was something that can't be really duplicated. So I mean, as teachers, I think we always strive to be able to do what he has done.
Chuck?
I'll kind of approach this from the other side. Of course, Mr. Siddiqui loves his students, but I want to talk about how much he loves the content. In my entire life as both a student and as a teacher with all my colleagues and everything, I can probably count on one hand the number of people who love their subject as much as Mr. Siddiqui does. His love for math is just, it radiates into everyone around him. It's like nothing I've ever seen.
Contagious, right?
Yeah, it's contagious, exactly. He just inspires a love for math. He allows us to see deeper than we could have on our own, I think. And it's very rare to find a teacher with that much love for the content as well as the students. It's very impressive.
So it was contagious.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, how has Mr. Siddiqui's decades-long commitment to his school and his students affected you and your classmates? And then how does it affect you as a teacher? I think you've answered that a little bit, but we can look at it again because that's important.
I think Jamil has built a community of his students. I had a lot of great teachers in high school. East Bridgewater High School was a great place to go. But I have not kept in touch with any of them the way that I've kept in touch with Jamil. And I don't think that's just because I became a math teacher. Like, he has the calculus dinners and barbecues and the AP scores barbecue cookout calling, whatever you want to call it, that he does most years. So I think he does a real good job at letting us create a community. So staying after school, maybe you hung out with people you didn't really otherwise and you wouldn't have otherwise, fostered some friendships, and then kept that going throughout the years by bringing people back together for different occasions.
Great. Either of you guys have something to add to that?
Off that?
I don't know. I have a little bit to say, I guess. I know I actually just at my school, I started a math team. I brought the math team that East Bridgewater is part of and all the local communities are part of to Southeastern where I work. Because, well, I loved it when I was a student. Jamil was the math team advisor, and I think it'll just be a cool opportunity for me and my students to really kind of express that love of math. I just want to try to create the same community in my classroom that he tries to create in his year after year. If I can even come anywhere close to the success he has, I'll be thrilled. I'll be satisfied in every way.
I'll be short. It's kind of what Autumn was saying, that as far as the community he's built in East Bridgewater over the years, I think you can kind of just ask anyone that stepped through the halls since he's been here that it's tough to think of East Bridgewater High School without him. Whether you had him in class or not, you saw him at all the games when we were in school doing photography. He's been involved with helping other clubs. He's kind of they run a competition every year of Mr. EBHS, but like to me, he's hands down Mr. EBHS.
And
I think
go
I was just
ahead.
going to add that when you mentioned how people come through the halls of East Bridgewater and know Mr. Siddiqui, I think it's also evident in the way he talks about his students or the family of the calculus.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's been times where Jamil's been out with somebody that I didn't know, total stranger, and he's like, "This is your sister of the calculus."
Right.
You know, it's all about family. So really building that community, and then somebody I didn't even know, I feel like I've got something in common, and you know, you can go from there.
Yes, I made a note about that too, because you mentioned the sports, but I've seen him at music events.
Yeah, he's solid.
Almost anything his students are involved in, if he has an opportunity to be there, he is. And at some point in something he wrote to us, he talked about how he felt he created a family, and I'm hearing that from you folks. And then he feels like you are creating families. So he's taken a little bit of credit for having his calculus children family and now his calculus grandchildren. And so he's building a very large community that's not just about math. That's his love for math has done it through math. But he's there for whatever you're interested in too, is what I'm hearing you say.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Now, can you tell me, you've already addressed this too, but how is his presence evident in your campuses where you are? How can you feel Jamil every day with you, or how are you sharing? You did that when you talked about starting the club, and you're in college, but...
I do. I teach at the community college level and the university level, but I teach a lot of the lower level classes, which we call developmental math. Generally, the students are not that enthusiastic about math, and so I've really tried to embrace, especially in the last few years, the idea that good teachers love their subject, but great teachers love their students. So it's all about meeting the students where they're at, you know, helping them push through their frustrations and persist, and showing my students that they can do the math that they think they can't do, but that they really can. And I think a lot of that started with Jamil, and that's how he influences me every day at work.
And therefore you influence your students. Anybody
try
else
to.
have something to say to that?
Jamil is present all over my high school in Plymouth South. So beyond me, I work with one of my best friends who is also a student of Jamil in our department. He's taught classes to 2 or 3 other math teachers in our department. So we're very familiar with him at Plymouth South High School. But as far as how you can maybe see him in some of my teaching in my classroom, I try and recreate an environment that he does where everyone is welcome, whether you're a math stud or someone that struggles in it. I know I always found him to be pretty funny. He's a funny guy. The sarcasm, the wit is second to none. So I always try and kid around and kind of break the ice, make it an environment that people feel comfortable in maybe being wrong or just speaking out.
I have a picture of him on my wall that my grandfather took at my graduation, actually. And right on there, I wrote, "This is your grand teacher." So it goes
Exactly
right along
like
with
his,
the,
yeah.
I have one in my room too.
Go to my office.
Great. So he's
strange.
Yeah.
he's
literally in my
expanding
room.
the love for math
Yep.
through the math family. That sounds great. I just want to remind you about really why we're here, other than singing Jamil's praises, to remember about the Legends and Legacy Gala, which is Friday, November the 1st at the Villa. And this gala will honor Jamil as Teacher of the Year, but they'll honor him here in East Bridgewater. So I'm hoping that we can get all the kids together and all will come and buy tickets, you know, that kind of thing. Because the other side of that is it benefits the Anne Hynes Scholarship. So every year students get scholarships from the high school here. And Schwab, I was going to end with, and you guys have already done a really great job of this, but asking you about what are some of Jamil's greatest hits?
All right. I have 3 things in mind.
Okay.
So I'm going to count down from number 3. Number 3, I don't know if John remembers this, but we were in the same BC calculus class. And he taught us this thing called the Euler method. And he told a story about us. We were the Euler method. And he based it on Les Mis. because we were reading that in our English class. I was the criminal, Schwab val Schwab, and he was Inspector Jardin,
Jardin,
who
yeah.
was chasing me down using the Euler method. So that was one of my favorite things he ever did. Second is, and she mentioned this, the all-day Saturday calculus barbecue right before the exam. That's an awesome event. And the number one greatest hit, it's the wall. The wall was the most inspirational thing for me in my life when I was in high school. Seeing all those names of the past calculus heroes like Miss Alden up on the wall, it just inspired me to do my best and earn a 5. I got up there twice. John's up there twice.
You were up there
I was up there
twice?
twice.
Yeah, it's
As the first person to be up there twice, because Alden is alphabetically. I should have been there earlier in '98, but Jamil put Katie Archer before me when I went to Florida to write her down first. But yes,
Good. Anybody else have, that was well thought through,
That
Schwab.
was impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. I tried.
been planning that one out.
Yeah, that was great.
And the wall is something.
Yeah, it's like getting your name on from
yeah.
the rafters
Yeah.
in the garden.
Yeah, exactly.
It is what it was. That was everything. It made you want to strive, and
Absolutely.
it was great.
When I am a calculus teacher someday, I will do the wall. I'm 100%. I'm committed to doing that with my own students when I am a calculus teacher in the
That
future.
would be great.
Hopefully not too long.
To get one of your students to do the 5.
I know.
That hand was actually one of his first students from his class of '94, '95, whatever his first year was. It was a year or two before me, but
Yeah.
I forget whose hand that was. But it was one of his students.
I don't remember whose hand it was either. We'll have to ask him.
Yeah.
No, that's something.
I had Matt Corthell in my head, but that could be wrong.
Okay, so you've already answered this question, but this community is going to be honoring Jamil as Teacher of the Year. The state has honored Jamil as Teacher of the Year. But in your opinion, why do you feel like this community, since that's where we are, the community of East Bridgewater, should honor Jamil? Can you think of any? You've given me great examples, but maybe dig deeper, because it's a real community.
I think, like John said, it's not just about his students. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that went through East Bridgewater High School that wasn't somehow affected by Jamil, even if they didn't take his AP Calculus class. You know, he's taught other classes, of course, but even students that aren't his students still know who he is. He's just such a presence, like you said, Mr. EBHS. You know, we've had some really, lots of really great teachers at East Bridgewater, but he stands out long running. What is he, 20-something years there? It was 20 years ago that I had him, so 25 now,
Yeah.
something like that. And I don't think he has any plans to retire until Jacob takes over for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I think he's just far-reaching. His impact is far-reaching.
Yeah, I don't think he ever at any point, and he can attest to this maybe, that ever intended to have so many of his own students go out and be teachers and affect other students' lives. And that's definitely something that should be celebrated. I mean, he's got a Parcells coaching tree of teachers.
Exactly.
And having someone in your own community that has effect now amongst other communities in the area is something really special.
Some simple logic as well. I don't educate the viewers a little bit. Massachusetts is the best state in the country for education. He's the best teacher in the best state. That
Right.
says something.
That's good.
That's
Great. Yes,
huge.
Yes,
And
that is huge, and it was
Yeah.
quite an honor to get.
absolutely,
Did you have the privilege of being at the State House when he was honored?
I was there.
Yeah.
I unfortunately was not. I was here. I was privileged to give his speech when it was, I think, last year or the year before that with another former student of his. So that was pretty awesome. Come full circle
I
for
heard that speech. I was most impressed.
Oh, thank you.
Those are
That was,
I was
from the
here.
heart. Yeah, right off the cuff.
That
But
was
it's easy to
great.
talk about him and give him praise.
Good, good. I think that, another thing is he connects with all students. And he has such a love of math, but the connection is really there with all students. And he meets you, in my opinion, he meets you where you are, but he challenges you to go a step higher. sometimes in math, sometimes it might be in something else. And he can relate. You're thinking of an idea, aren't you,
I
Autumn?
was just thinking of when he made me write my English essays because I was not the very best English student. I had we had block scheduling when I was in high school my senior year, so I had calculus, I had French, which I really liked. I had something else. I think a 1 credit or half period elective, and then I had AP English, and I was not as enthusiastic for AP English as I was for calculus. So I brought my first term report card back, and there were 3 A's and a C. And Mr. Siddiqui said, one of these things is not like the other ones. And I said, yeah, well, I didn't write some of those essays I was supposed to. And he's like, well, I'm going to fail you in calculus if you don't write them. So, so he
That
got
sounds
me
like
to
him.
write my English essays, and I didn't really want to.
So his goal was for you to do your best
Absolutely.
everywhere you could do your best.
Everywhere.
And I feel like he does work really hard to connect all students in all ways. Anyone who just wants to challenge themselves, he's really there for them. How would you say, how would people benefit from taking a math class with Jamil Siddiqui?
Kind of what we were just saying. He's going to challenge you, and I think that's healthy for anyone. Whether and you'll be challenged whether you are the best math student in your grade or whether you're one of the weaker ones. I think any good mentor, coach, teacher knows that how you're going to grow and develop is through challenging you, and he is the master of that. Really makes you think and develops you as a learner.
And I think so too. So I think my goal here is to ask you to gather your friends and families and all the people in the community together so that we can all honor Jamil Siddiqui and provide scholarships for our town, just so that we can continue the legacy. But
Great. I'll be there.
I will.